All right, it's the TFW Daily for the final time in this Sri Lanka Australia series. Adam Collins and Bharat Sundar racing with you, cbussuper.com.au. We thank them for their support in everything that we do around the world. Baz, sum up this fourth and final day in 30 seconds.
Well, it was all about Kusal Mendes. Could he do something special? He got to 50 but wasn't to be. Nathan Lyon, short ball, tried to pull, was out. Nathan Lyon almost got a wicket with his last ball in goal but wasn't to be. But Australia did polish Sri Lanka off. They needed 75 to win. They went about it in quick fashion, lost Travis Head, but good to see Marnus Labuschagne in there scoring the winning runs. And Australia win their first series in this country since 2011.
Yep, 14 years. Labuschagne winning runs, 26 not. Kawaja with him at the end, made 27 not out. Head the only man that fell in the fourth innings for 20. They won it in 17.4 overs with oodles of time and 9 wickets to spare. So bowling out Sri Lanka for 231. They only needed about 25 minutes this morning. Sri Lanka added 20 runs, a couple of them for Kusal Mendes in the first over to raise the half century. But next ball was the decisive ball on the day, really, if you want to view it in those terms. One got big on him. He tried to shovel it round the corner, getting resourceful with the field spread, caught the shoulder of the bat, ballooned up to Stephen Smith, who picked up his 200th catch in Test cricket, only 10 behind for the most catches ever in Test cricket for an outfielder. So probably the easiest of that 200, it must be said. It ballooned up to short fine leg, a position where he wouldn't ordinarily be fielding, but so it is when you're in that situation. Anyway, a few useful runs that gave them a lead. I say useful runs, it was a fait accompli. They were going to be bowled out sooner rather than later. Probably the moment of the day was the non-catch of Bo Webster when he lunged forward at second slip. It would have been the 10th and final wicket. We on radio were right into the swing, right into our work we were.
Probably some of our best work ever.
Honestly, I was as we're going through the gears, like, gee, this is pretty fucking good.
Yeah.
Talking about the Sangakkara moment, one left-hander to start his career, first ball at goal, another left-hander to finish, another 5-wicket bag, the poetry in motion, and so on, only for the ball to have landed in front of Bo Webster, according to the third umpire, Chris Gaffney, not to be. So Lyon ends up with 4, giving him, by the way, 60 wickets in Australian Sri Lankan Test matches. Very unlikely he'll play Sri Lanka in Test cricket again. I would say quite unlikely Australia will ever play Sri Lanka in Test cricket again, but let's not do that right now. 49 of them in Sri Lanka. What a career he's enjoyed in this part of the world. He walked off the field and gave a wave to the Aussie fans and gave a wave on the balcony as well. Nathan always speaks with such tenderness about Galle, so I'm really glad he got that crucial wicket of Kusal Mendes just to make sure of where the result was going after Kuhnemann picked up 4 yesterday.
I'm almost tempted to repeat what I said on commentary, and considering people would have heard it, but it didn't count for anything, I might do it again, because I did the math last night, and so he dismissed Angelo Matthews yesterday playing the sweep, 4,909 days after he dismissed Angelo Matthews playing the sweep in 2011 on his first day as a test bowler, second day as a test cricketer. Back then it was Angelo Matthews became Nathan Lyon's second wicket. Yesterday became his 552nd wicket. So I was just on commentary, said, 4,910 days later, Nathan Lyon finishes with a wicket of his last ball like he did wicket with his first ball. But it wasn't to be, but it was great commentary. I gave myself a pat on the back. Adam Collins was very impressed, but if Chris Gaffney wasn't impressed with Bo Webster's or where his fingers were, they weren't under the ball. But you're right, I mean, he's had such a love affair with this ground. It would have been an apt finish, but you know, in a way, it's one of those things, right? Steve Smith getting his 10,000th run in SCG not happening, which reminds you that sport's not always all about romance. We are all about romance, but look, it's just one of those things. But you know, that first ball to Kumar Sangakkara will be played and replayed so many times, and he gets asked about it so often, Adam. But I thought he answered it really well last evening.
Yeah, Rex asked him in the presser, didn't he?
Yeah, and he said, well, Mike Hussey and Ricky Ponting came up to me and said, bowl your best ball, trust your processes, and let's see where it takes you. And he stuck with it for 14 years, gone around the world, taken wickets everywhere. But every time he comes here, you can see he's beaming, isn't he? And yesterday he spoke about his long rivalry with Angelo Matthews, but probably his home away from home in many ways.
Yeah, I'll indulge here. I wrote to Nathan the night before his Test debut in 2011, having known him from club cricket, and I don't remember what I said and what the correspondence back and forth was at the time, but it was along the lines of, this is just so amazing, enjoy every second of it. And to think that he's still doing this 14 years later, and the way that he looked at the time as such a young, fresh-faced bowler in his early 20s and now being in his late 30s at the other end of his career. I posed on radio today a sort of a theoretical question about, it's within the realms of possibility that he could reach Murali. I mean, it almost certainly won't happen. I think
250 wickets.
People fundamentally misunderstood the idiom of realms of possibility. It would require a lot to go right. And
did people get upset with you?
Oh, funny that.
Oh, wow.
Virgin's getting upset with me. But no, these things happen online. I think more because he'll overtake Kumle in the process, right? If he were to do that.
I think he will overtake Kumle.
I think that's the main reason people are cross.
690
it implies
wickets.
that Kumle will be overtaken if he's going to therefore go on and overtake Warne and, threaten Murali. Anyway, whatever. It doesn't really matter. The point is that across this long journey that Lyons had in Test cricket, there have been times when he has had the imposter syndrome thing going on. I remember when he was appealing for wickets at the Gabba in 2013, he did so almost apologetically. And you now go over a decade later and he has this real presence about him, so much so that he almost doesn't celebrate his wickets. It's almost like, job done. Got another one. Beautifully done. It would have been his 25th 5-wicket bag. I know we're spending a lot of time talking about something that was a very brief moment, but I liked it a lot. It felt right that he was able to walk off having done so well here in his final test at Galle. And from there, at the other end, Kuhnemann wasn't bowling quite so well today, so Smith got his slug out, got Bo Webster into the attack. First ball, hits off stump, Midas touch. I actually voted for Steve Smith for man of the match, not because of anything to do with Alex Carey, I should note. Carey played an absolute worldly. It was more that I felt that Smith's runs and the way he made them, plus his remarkable touch with the captaincy this week. The amount of times he got his bowling changes pitch perfect was freakish. So you can make a case for him being the player of the match as well. I thought it might have been one of those where they issue 2 players of the match, but that doesn't happen too often in modern cricket.
No, it doesn't, but Steve Smith did get the player of the series, and
rightly
very,
so.
very deservedly. So the way he batted, and we've been singing his praises for the last 2 weeks. But you're right, I mean, with that, we spoke about his captaincy yesterday, at least 1,000 masterstrokes during this series, and again, it only happened that the last piece or his last touch was the Midas touch again, where he gave the ball to Bo Webster, took him just one ball to get that wicket. Just on Kuhnemann, he didn't bowl too well today. I mean, he bowled a couple of overs at best, but throughout that journey that Nathan Lyon has had, rarely has he had someone at the other end with whom he could really build a future. Right? Like Kuhnemann at 28, and obviously Todd Murphy also comes into the mix, but because Kuhnemann's a left-arm spinner, it almost feels like Nathan Lyon's been single for the longest time. In terms of being a spinner out there in the middle, and now he has someone who he can build a happy life together with. They
can move in together. They can think about what's next, think about kids, think about a mortgage.
I think so.
All these things you're doing at the start of a relationship when you think it's got real prospect, it's got real legs, and clearly this one with Lyon and Kuhnemann does, to end that tortured analogy, and it'll continue again. They'll pick it up when they go to the Caribbean in the middle of the year, and that'll lay another foundation stone on that house. Before the trip to India in 2 years.
Before the kids arrive.
Before the kids arrive, when they're in India and they're going to have one last lash at it. So Australia were chasing 75, and I think we all felt a degree of tension for Marnus. Like his body language, you talked about it on comms and on the pod yesterday. I saw him this morning heading out to have a hit before play. I almost didn't want to say hello to him. I felt like he was so in the zone, but also like probably not knowing whether he'd get a hit. In a way, it worked out really nicely that Travis Head was caught behind for 20. There was about 30 or 40 runs available to him then, and Labuschagne, to his immense credit, didn't try and nurdle his way to safe harbour and finish with like 12 not out. He's like, no, I'm going to keep attacking. And I mean, it's a relatively small sample size because he didn't face too many balls in the series, but boy, when he got to the pitch with those wrists and he whipped the ball down the ground, he played a couple of those on the first day of the series, one before he got out the other day, and a couple of beautiful shots like that this morning. It's just a little tell and a little reminder, Marnus Labuschagne hasn't forgotten how to be a test class batsman. What's happened to Marnus Labuschagne is that over a period of time, his ability to make runs consistently has dropped off, and his ability to make 3-figure scores for Australia, which he was doing routinely in the first 4 or 5, well, not even 4 or 5, it was from the Brisbane 2019 Test match through until, I suppose you would say, Old Trafford in 2023. So about a 4-year window there where he did make a lot of Test hundreds, and that's been lost to him, and no one can really identify why. It's not as though he looks like he's lost as a player.
No.
I suppose the most we can attribute this to is that he's in the middle of a real mid-career slump, and some players don't come back from them. Most who are a certain standard do, but some don't. I think about Norm O'Neill and the way that his career ended up finishing prematurely compared to what everyone thought he was going to go and achieve after 58, 59 and what he did in 1960. His test career was finished by 1964, 1965 possibly, and probably around the same age as Marnus is now. The difference for Marnus is that he now has the ability to be a nationally contracted player. They're not going to take that away from him. And that will be the challenge, whether he can stay in the side in the short term and whether he can revert to being a heavy scorer sometime soon.
Yeah, I mean, Steve Smith summed it up. He said, like, there are batters, at times you can be out of form, but at times you can be in very good form but just be short of runs. And Steve Smith himself experienced it. We spoke about him 2 days ago, where I felt like he was the happiest he had been with his batting at the start of the summer. He felt the same. He's been saying it for a while. The runs weren't coming, and then once they started coming, we've seen what has happened. It's a glut. And these are extremely greedy, hungry batters, Steve Smith and Marnus. So when they get into that kind of vein, they will make the most of it. I think, like Steve Smith, maybe as Marnus Labuschagne's career progresses and he gets into his late or into his mid-30s and beyond, we'll probably look back at a career where runs have come in clusters. Like Steve Smith's is the same. Most great batters is the same. Nobody really averages the hundreds, or the centuries don't come as per the average that they score the centuries in, if that makes sense. It's always, they go through a phase where they score a lot of hundreds and a leanish phase in terms of centuries, and then they hit that peak form again, which is what I think will happen with Marnus. And like I said, it was so good to see the rest of the team rally around him. I was there downstairs when the players were coming off after the winning runs were scored, which came off Marnus's bat. And you could see Usman was giving him a cuddle, and then Steve Smith was there waiting for him. Mitch Starc was not too far behind, and he was joking around. He was feeling really good about his life. And like I said earlier, we did bump into each other and gave him a bit of a cuddle, because I think he needs it. At times, cricketers, people, all of us, when you are going through a bit of a slump, like you said, and you're not sure why it's happening, at times all you need is someone to just come and wrap their arms around you. And I am a good hugger.
You are indeed. And look, maybe the red ink will be the cuddle that Marnus requires. It's only 26 not out, but being there at the end, as he was at indoor in 2023 as well. So that's the second time he's been involved in a successful chase one down for Australia in their last two of their last three wins in Asia. So, that's all part of it as well, that muscle memory when he needs to go out and do it again, maybe in India in a couple of years' time. Have I missed anything from the day's play?
I mean,
probably not really. Jayasuriya getting a wicket, his 80th Test wicket at Galle in 10 matches is ridiculous. But that was a statistical sideshow today.
Yeah, it was. And I mean, obviously, sweet touch with Dimut Karnaratne bowling the last over, and maybe just the last couple of deliveries. I think about 4 deliveries, and Marnus picked off a single. So that was a nice touch from Dhananjay De Silva. But I think we can just sum up the series in itself, right? Like, so many contributors for Australia, so many heroes, in conditions which probably weren't as extreme as they expected it to be, especially the pitch here for the second test. But Usman Khawaja came into the series with pressure on him. Adam, he makes the double 100, and he batted really well in the first innings as well. Steve Smith continues on from where he left off towards the end of the home summer. Alex Carey with that innings here in the first innings and played well in the first test. Josh Inglis made in test 100. Bo Webster's contributions, I think, will kind of be lost, but the catches he took, the crucial 31 he made yesterday when things could have really dismantled for Australia, and the wickets, the 2 wickets and crucial wickets as well that he took. And of the bowlers we've spoken about, Mitchell Starc had a brilliant series, not the wickets to show for it because he didn't bowl enough, but I thought he really shone with the ball, and once again showed us why he's so he loves bowling in Sri Lanka, of all countries, so much.
Yeah, so 29 wickets between the 2 frontline spinners. Starc playing a role, Inglis 100 on debut, Khawaja back in the runs, Smith 200s in the series, Alex Carey career high score. I mean, there's barely a box they haven't checked off here. So again, we've said it a number of times on different platforms, but a credit to the planning process to the Australians. They got it right. They got their plans right beforehand in Dubai, testing themselves in more extreme conditions that were tailor-made for to be basically snake pits in the event that they got them here. It didn't quite play out that way, although this second pitch was far more sporting than the first. So they'll be thrilled with what they've done here. As Tom Morris said on our radio call, they've laid a mark up when it comes to what might be possible in India in 2 years' time. And they'll build towards that the way the Australians built towards India in 2004, I suspect, and they'll have a group of senior players who are desperate for success in that country. So it's absolutely not all about India, far from it, but these Australian teams over the years have used India as a way of benchmarking themselves. So it only stands to reason that this series, now it's out the way and they've won 2-0, will be something they look back on fondly when they prepare their long build-up for 2027.
And they've given themselves a blueprint as to how they can prepare, how they can plan, and how they can win in the subcontinent. I asked Steve Smith about what they did right here, which they didn't do in other subcontinental tours that he's been on. And he said just the way the batters have found their own technique. So often we've had teams from outside the subcontinent come to South Asia and have team plans. We'll all sweep, or we'll all play on the back foot, or whatever it is. And we've seen so many versions of that over the years. But here, Usman Khawaja had his own way, Alex Carey had his own way, Manas had his own way, even if it didn't work out completely for him. And Steve Smith, well, he just does what Steve Smith does. He's born to play here. And even someone like Josh Inglis playing his first test, but also a test in very alien conditions, the way he adjusted. I think those are things that they will carry forward. And now that they have the Lyon Kuhneman partnership as well, I mean, bring on India.
Yeah, and a nod to Travis Head in all of that as well, getting them off the 3 flyers. I know he didn't make bulk runs, but the way he did it, which will certainly be a part of Australia's planning in 2027. Bharat, let's take a pause in a moment. We'll return for the final time at Galle with our Hall of Fame. Okay, it's the Hall of Fame. The final word, Adam Collins and Bharat Sundaresan, brought to you by Morris Blackburn Lawyers. Been talking about insurance in recent days, and Morris Blackburn want people to know about their super insurance because it can really help you and your family when you need it most. Injury and illness doesn't need to be work related. It doesn't matter where you have become ill or unwell or injured. What matters is whether you're able to work because of the injury or illness. The reality is you could have suffered a stroke or been diagnosed with cancer or developed a mental illness. If it stops you from working, you may have a claim, and making a claim can be difficult. So that's where Morris Blackburn step in. So many people have had their claims unfairly judged and rejected because they can't access everything they need with their entitlements. Quite common. So everyday Aussies taking on insurance companies is complex with the vast resources they enjoy. So Morris Blackburn look after your claim. They know what to do. They know how to get clients the maximum amount they're entitled to. And with Morris Blackburn, they help you navigate through that process. So more about super insurance as we work through the month of February. Morris Blackburn Lawyers, Australia's #1 plaintiff law firm. And we are proud to be working with them throughout this Australian and southern summer. I'm not even entirely sure whether we're in the southern hemisphere. Are we in Sri Lanka?
No, we're in the northern hemisphere.
We're in the northern hemisphere. It's funny that I don't even really know. I'm like, are we in the southern hemisphere? Northern hemisphere.
Well, it's summer. I mean, it
It's
feels
summer.
like summer here.
It's always summer somewhere, as Felix's
correct.
book was titled a couple of years ago. Do you want to take it away with your Hall of Fame noms?
I think my first one happened just after the match. The test match is finished, and we've become so used to, or maybe because we're coming off that Border Gavaskar Trophy, which was so high on intensity, and even when it ended, you could see the Indians were down and out, the Australians were cock a hoop. This was just very plain, and I was just standing down there with a couple of the other younger Australian journalists, and they went like, "Oh, this feels a little flat." I said, "No, it's not flat. It's not a fierce rivalry, is there?"
They get on extremely well.
They completely
the way they've embraced Dimuth Karunaratne's 100th Test this week. I mean, they must have given him about 5 standing ovations. They didn't need to go to that extent, and I don't think it was patronising in the slightest either. By the way, it was a nod of respect to someone who has been an outstanding Test cricketer, and they all wish to be outstanding Test cricketers, as Karunaratne has been.
Yeah, very much so. And while that was happening on the sidelines, Nathan Lyon was doing something which I can totally see him do once he does retire many years from now. Hold his own spin conclave.
Yeah.
Because he just stood there, and all the other younger Sri Lankan spinners, Jeffrey is not young, but young as a Test cricketer. So Jeffrey Van der Sar, Ramesh Mendes, there was Nishan Pires and a couple of others. They all just stood around him as Nathan Lyon held court, and then he just walked a few yards to his left, where Prabhat Jayasuriya was waiting for him. And yeah, why not? I think you can attend one of those spinners conclaves as well, Adam.
I'm bang up for this.
Yeah, I think we should organise this.
I have thought this through. I mean, bowling with Bryce McGain a couple of times this week, I
Yes.
thought that a bit of one-on-one tuition wouldn't go astray at this time of year, leading into the pre-season, which is where I'll be heading this evening when I return to London, and my girls, which I can't wait for. Hey, an update though. Our campaign has got us checked it then. Our campaign to meet Murali, we haven't got there, but bloody hell, we've got close. We're on 796
Oh
members
my
right
God,
now on
just 4
Patreon.
off.
We're just 4 off. We've come home with the wet sail. This offer extends. The phone call that Bharat's going to engineer for
Yes.
you. He's in Sri Lanka longer than I am.
There you go.
He's going to the one-day internationals. So there's only 4. You can be 800. I don't know how we're going to work out who it is. Someone will work that
We'll
out.
figure it out.
In fact, I do know how to do that. There's a way of... Yeah, I'll be
Okay,
able
he
to work
knows.
out who person number 800 is. Become a member right now. When
Come
you
on.
hear this, get in now. And what do they get for it?
Well, you get a call from Pragyan Oja, who will talk to you about what it is to be number 800. because he
Murali's
knows all about
800.
it.
Murali's 800th victim will be on the phone with you, and that will be the fillip for you being one of the 4. Now, obviously, a lot of people have joined up to get us close. That's the way these things work. We don't value you any less,
No.
but it's a nice thing that we can do here on the podcast, so why not become a patron? Patreon.com/the final word. Make it possible for us to continue to doing the types of things we've done over the last 2 weeks in Galle. I know I bang on about it a lot, but commercial partnerships come and go. What's dependable with the final word with Jeff and Bharat, myself, Norcross, Cam, everybody, and indeed Andrew Fidel Fernando, Daniel Rasool,
Easy.
who will be hosting the Champions Trophy coverage starting next week in
Oh, yeah.
Pakistan and the UAE. That all needs to be funded, and I'm proud of the fact that we're an independent organisation. We can say and do whatever the hell we want. And that's because of the beautiful people who have been financially supporting us. So thank you to everybody for making this possible, for letting Baz and me do what Baz and I do.
Very much so.
And thank you
Thank
to
you.
everybody for listening, to Seabus Super, to Morris Blackburn Lawyers, for having our back throughout the course of this year. The sunglasses, T20 Vision, click the link and get 10% off. You know the drill. Thank you to everybody in Sri Lanka who's looked after us. What a
Yeah,
joy,
no.
Baz. Your final thoughts on leaving this great ground?
No, I mean, one final glimpse of the clock tower behind us. It's a
Yeah.
privilege. It's honestly a privilege to do what we do. And thanks so much for, making sure that we get to do what we
Yeah.
are so fortunate to be able to do. We're blessed. I'm blessed to know Adam Collins and to call him a brother. And, it's all, yeah, I don't know why I'm getting a little soppy, but
okay.
why shouldn't you?
Yeah.
It's the end of another test series for us. And thank you for making me an integral part of the series as well, Adam. I generally come and go. I'm the distant, I'm not a distant cousin. I'm the cousin of the podcast, I like to call myself. But it's been so much fun, and Sri Lanka is amazing, and you guys really make this all happen for us.
Thank you to everybody for watching and listening and subscribing and being there for us. We love yous all. Australia victorious here in Sri Lanka by 9 wickets. We'll see you again for many more podcasts very soon indeed. Bye-bye.